So, in this sort of video, we're gonna take a look at what would happen if America was invaded by the rest of the world, or America went to war with the rest of the world. This is gonna be a pretty interesting scenario, mostly because America is just well and beyond, like, more powerful militarily than any other country in the entire world. So, it wouldn't actually be a, like, sweep for the rest of the countries. So, alright. So let's fill in the countries. We'll do the defenders in blue, which is America with all their Pacific islands. All right, and then everything else is gonna be red. So that's Canada, Mexico, and literally everyone else. All right. So this is basically what the map is gonna look like. All right. So things aren't looking great for the USA in this scenario because, well, I mean, this map says a lot. There's the entire world against them, but they are going to nonetheless keep. They're gonna, since they're on North America, they have like a fortress that they can defend because there's an ocean on either side of them. So they're gonna start their invasion up into Canada, into southern Ontario, just to secure and make sure that Canada can't actually invade America. And at the same time, they're going to launch amphibious invasions in Cuba and cut off Baja California and land in the Yucatan Peninsula, while also starting an incursion from Texas. Although this whole area is pretty desolate, so it's less important for them to take that. But they still do manage to hook up with their area here, and Baja California just kind of surrenders at that point. Yeah, so Baja California gets to here, and then they just surrender. Because, yeah, so, and also in British Columbia, they're going to invade Vancouver Island and go up here into Victoria and swiftly take over Vancouver Island and come down here from Alaska, take over whatever these islands' names are, on and basically just secure the western coast of the United States. So they are also going to move up here into Nova Scotia and take over the entire island because with their massive navy, they decide that the most important thing to do is stop any, because, okay, all of the militaries here in Eurasia or Afro Eurasia are going to, like, pose a problem for the US. But the thing is if the US can just stop these people from getting over to North America, they stand a much better chance. And so they're going to stop the imports, which are probably going to Nova Scotia or somewhere to their south. But Nova Scotia is where it would probably happen. So they're also going to take Prince Edward Island, which I forgot to color in, whatever. And they land onto Newfoundland. They also take all of New Brunswick and cross over the St. Lawrence River. In the rest of the world, there is some negotiations on what they should do, and they decide to split up their forces. So a lot of Europe is going to try to supply and keep Canada alive, while China, Japan, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, Australia are going to make some assaults from the onto the west coast and try to take Hawaii. And in South America, they're going to just try to stay alive as long as possible with supply from everyone, including India and a lot of African countries, to make sure that they don't fall. Because once they fall, it basically becomes impossible to stage an amphibious invasion that is successful. So further gains are made in Mexico, and in Cuba is completely taken over along with all these islands here, and the Caribbean is fully in American control now. They also push up into the flat plain lands of southern Ontario and capture Toronto, Kingston, and are now, like, about to get to Ottawa. and they capture Ottawa, and they unite with their other front in Quebec. Meanwhile, in Central America, they cut off at the Panama Canal from landings in Cuba, and they move down from the Yucatan Peninsula down into Belize, and they also go down the coast of Mexico. So they keep going through Mexico, and Mexico is resisting, but it's really difficult because America is the largest military in the world, and eventually they are going to reach kind of a stalemate line, although this is probably not going to last very long. Back in the north, all of New Brunswick is captured, along with St. John's, Newfoundland, and in Manitoba there are incursions. Also, there is an advance into Calgary, Alberta, which is pretty successful because all this area is just flat plains, and the U.S. is just riding tanks through this entire area. So they capture most of the Canadian Great Plains. In the Rockies, it's a little bit more difficult, but they do end up securing their western flank a little bit more in that respect. Moving back down to the south, they connect the Yucatan and Maine, Mexico armies and take over all of the Yucatan Peninsula, along with basically the rest of Mexico. They capture all of it and have it under military occupation. With that, they steamroll through all these Central American countries until they reach I forget what it's called, but there is a gap here that is just all jungle in Panama, which makes there's a continuous highway all through North America and South America, except for this area, which is just jungle. And so it's going to be really difficult to get past this area, but it will be possible. America captures the Galapagos Islands, and they do manage to stage some amphibious landings from Cuba and Puerto Rico into Colombia. Now, America's looking a lot bigger and a lot more threatening in this scenario, and yeah, that's because they are. And I don't really see a way the rest of the world can affect America, but they're definitely going to try. A lot of troops are sent from England to aid in and naval vessels to try to secure South America, and they've basically just conceded North America because it's too far away, and America has already basically taken Canada. Out here in the Pacific, there is a lot of battles, and a specific island here is captured by the rest of the world, and they they kind of get along this island chain, but don't actually capture all of the most populated island along with the biggest island. And American naval supremacy, they move some of their ships out from in the Galapagos and move back to Hawaii and manage to take back all these islands. That was a close call for America, but they still are pretty protected in their place. So they managed to get around and basically just force this area of Panama to concede, and they connect all their amphibious landings, moving really close to the capital of Colombia, and they just kind of rush past the coastline and into Ecuador, Peru. Now, this is the Amazon rainforest, kind of, and it is not really, it's not going to work to put troops through it, so instead, America is going to send its troops out to the east along the coast to go through Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and then eventually French Guiana until they reach Brazil proper. And they manage to get quite a way into the coastline, but there is some counter pressure from the other side. And specifically, French forces are going to push the Americans out of French Guiana, and Brazilian forces are going to push Americans out of here and most of Brazil. But they do have a defensive position on this peninsula here, which I don't know the name of, but the weaker countries here are pretty defenseless, and they kind of just lose to the Americans, who just overpower them in every respect. And there is kind of a stalemate at this point in South America because all of the forces are going into a few battlegrounds, and so the Americans decide to do something a little bit unprecedented and go into the Amazon and try to cross. This is called Operation Cobra. Yeah, Operation Cobra, and they send troops in order to try to flank the the troops sieging American forces here. So they end up sending a not a lot, but a significant amount of military personnel into the Amazon rainforest. But little did the Americans know that Brazil was kind of expecting this, and they managed to cut off and surround and kill a lot of American soldiers. There's no mercy in this war. This gets back to America at home, which is deeply affected by it, but they are still really they don't have any choice. They have to control all of North America, and basically they control all of Canada now. They just kind of send troops all around Quebec and then into Nunavut, and eventually they just get the entire thing. There we go. That's looking a lot better for America. Now they have only really one front to worry about, and then of course they have to worry about some threats of like invasion, but it's less of an issue than it might seem. And now that they relieve that front, they can actually move troops and they push back into French Guiana, taking it proper and linking up almost with their peninsula. In the hopes of trying to break through in here in Peru, they go around, and this is kind of I don't know exactly where Lima is, but it's along the coast, I'm pretty sure. And let's just say it's here. And they just take it because of the amount of troops they got from the front in Canada, they're able to take it from Peru. And they end up taking a lot of the northern coastline of South America in this process. Now, here, the rest of the world is realizing that they made a mistake declaring war on America, and they decide to have a conference, not with America, but with all the remaining countries. And they decide that the only way to proceed is a full-on naval invasion of America proper. And this is, it might work. It seems pretty dubious at best, but they realize that they're going to lose in South America because America is just so much closer and has a way stronger military presence in that area. So the only way for them to win is to cut them out at the source and, pacify the American government. So they do just that with troops from England, France, Russia, China, India, Australia, Nigeria, Spain, Italy, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, South Africa, Brazil, Iran, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Sweden, the Netherlands, Algeria, Argentina, Chile. These countries all decide to pool the resources and go for a definitive strike into the American heartland. And the date is set at 2025 at this point, probably 2027, honestly. And they decide to punch into America. And here's what happens. So they decide to go right here in. Alright, so they go here in Delaware and capture this extremely defendable position, but they are kind of stopped by American forces and even independent forces because every American has like 3 guns, so they stop everyone in their tracks. But this is a huge signal to America as a whole that they're not impenetrable in this world, and that it's important for them to focus a lot more on homeland security than expansion in this time. So they pull back in a lot of the South America, and they lose this area of Brazil and are kicked out of Brazil almost entirely. And even in Peru, they lose some territory in order to repel the Homeland invasion. There are 3 concentrated areas to retake the island. From the north, from the sea, which is east, and from the west. So the plan is to make a landing here supported by the Navy, and then your thing is surrounded and troops here can come and wipe out the island. Does that end up happening? No. So the landing here in the north of Delaware is fine. But then out here there is The navies of the rest of the world are preparing for this, and the U.S. isn't able to fend them off in time, so they don't actually end up getting any territory. Instead, a lot of their fleet is destroyed, and so they keep going with their advance the west, but without a lot of the support from being flanked. Even still, they do end up reuniting with their northern side of the island, and they dig in and have a stalemate line along here. Moving back down south, some fleets are sent from the west coast of the United States to go take important cities in South America. So they do end up capturing Santiago and going up here and making a lot of landings in important areas. And these kind of destabilize this entire side, or mostly just South America, but it destabilizes South America a lot. And since America feels pretty stable in their stalemate up here, they decide to continue with their incursions into the south. And they're using their superior navy to guard their amphibious invasions. And they almost have a perimeter around South America at this point. And they capture all of Chile, and they kind of just claim most of this area, Peru, Colombia, and Venezuela, even though they're not really controlling it, but nothing is there, so they just kind of claim it. And more troops are piling up in southern Brazil to smash through. They take Argentina. Argentina falls to the Americans, and then shortly followed by Brazil. Damn, that's a big... yeah, so now most of the Americas are controlled by the United States of America. And since they move all their boys back home and recapture Delaware, just like that. There's less and less support from the rest of the world. They're kind of confused. Why did we even want this? We're not getting anything from it. And America is going on a power trip, sort of, and they want to get as much as they can. And they invade Greenland for that reason, followed by Iceland, and then they even reach into Ireland. And at this point, the rest of the world is kind of fed up. They're losing a lot over and over again, and they just decide to have a peace deal with America. And we'll see how that ends up. We'll see how that looks. Alright, so basically in this peace deal, there is nothing really changed in the rest of the world except for North America, which is seized mostly by America, just so they can have some actual security from if the rest of the world tries to do this again. They annex Cuba, most of the Caribbean actually, the Yucatan Peninsula, a lot of northern Mexico, Baja California, all of Canada, and even Iceland and Greenland. This is all for security, and with this, they can actually even if the rest of the world got a lot stronger, they would still not be able to invade America again. So now America is a bastion of it's just an island with 2 impenetrable coasts, along with a bunch of unsinkable aircraft carriers. They also take the Galapagos, so they got a bunch of islands in the south, north, west, and not really any east, but that's also where most of their fleet is. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks for watching.